What motivated you to enroll in the Entrepreneurial Mindset class?
What motivated me was it was kind of my desire to someday be a full-time entrepreneur. I'm trying to set my phone up so it'll stay stable for me. Um, I haven't always wanted to be a business owner, but uh, especially when I got out of grad school and got a taste of working life, full-time working life and not having school obligations and so forth, I started thinking that I would be a better boss for myself than some of the people that had been my bosses before. And that's I'm not I don't think of myself as a great manager of other people. And I think naturally I'm a procrastinator. And so maybe in some ways I was hoping that by taking the entrepreneurial mindset class, I might learn some lessons to get those tendencies under control so I could actually be a successful entrepreneur and not just, continue procrastinating and putting off work until the last second. And come to find out, a lot of entrepreneurs don't stop being procrastinators. Um, that's not necessarily a lesson that you can learn in a classroom. You just have to get better at being an entrepreneur. And it's kind of like we used to talk about when I was at the Fab Lab. You can't really learn golf by studying it in a book or watching video. You kind of have to go play golf to learn how to play golf.
Well, how did the class influence your approach to problem solving?
When I took the class, we hadn't started the Fab Lab that long before, and I tended to think about the problems we would encounter as uh, uh, requiring me to step back and analyze and think about it and consider it, and in a lot of cases overthink it and overconsider it. And the entrepreneurial mindset class kind of got me a little bit more toward just figuring it out as I go and not being afraid to just jump in and take the first step that makes the most sense at the time. And on the one hand, you kind of come out the tail end of that thinking, oh, I did some stuff wrong and I would do it differently if I did it again. And on the other hand, you get a lot done in a short amount of time with minimal resources. And I think that is kind of indicative of the entrepreneurial mindset in a way.
Time and maybe talk about, even if it's still with you today, any changes in your confidence level about taking new risk and even you could say learning new things and trying new ventures.
One of the lessons that carries forward into both instances, either when you're training to be an ice house facilitator or when you're just taking the ice house class as a student, is that you've got to confront the imposter syndrome that maybe is deep down in a lot of people that haven't kind of woken up to their entrepreneurial mindset yet. And my side hustle of fixing bicycles, I still struggle with that kind of imposter syndrome because I don't have a brick and mortar store with lots of inventory and flashy signs on the walls where people can walk in and spend a lot of money on a bike. But I do consider it, um, kind of core to who I am, that um, I'm able to practice my skills and provide a service that people find value in, and I really appreciate that. Um, if I were ever to ramp up and have a brick and mortar store someday, and I hope that does happen someday, I'll be able to lean back on all the confidence of just doing it as a part-time side hustle for all these years, and I have a much more realistic idea about what it would take to be successful in that industry. And so for a lot of the the basement, garage, garden shed type, cottage industry type businesses, I would encourage them not to discount themselves just because they haven't made it into a full-time endeavor yet. They're really building this strong foundation and the understanding of what it would take to be successful in that line of work. And in some ways, it's the perfect way to practice before making the leap into a full-time gig.
I agree. I agree. And it's a really good way to start for the people who can do it that way. Starting out as a side hustle is a really good way to do it. And you learn a lot of stuff, and it does give you a much better sense of what it would take to jump off and do it full time. Well, final question, in kind of related, in what ways did the class foster a sense of resilience and adaptability in your entrepreneurial endeavors or other endeavors, let's say professional endeavors?
Yeah, the resilience is something that came through just the encouragement of watching others and understanding that it's not all perfect. Even the really successful businesses still hit obstacles and stumbling blocks. And when you get into those situations, if you can go back to basics and remember the fundamentals of how to pivot and how to micro experiment and how to just figure it out. Gary Schoniger talks about you've got to ask these questions. What do you do when the rules aren't clear and no one's coming to help and no one's in charge? It's like those three
Yes.
things are that's the day to day when you're running your own business. No one's in charge but you. No one's coming to help you and tell you how to do it and fix all your problems, and the rules aren't clear. Just because you sell a widget doesn't mean you can't eventually start selling gizmos, or fixing them for people. So um, I learned that if I got fired tomorrow, which won't happen because I at least I don't think it'll happen, but even if I did get fired tomorrow, I don't have to feel helpless, and I don't have to feel incapable. Um, and that's not to say that I have a backup plan. I don't really have a backup plan necessarily. I just know that, with my attitude and my two hands and my work ethic, there's a lot I could do.
That's worth a lot right there. And a lot of people that are working today don't have that. They're scared to death of being fired or laid off, don't know what they do. Many of them have too much debt too. But that might be another reason why this mindset thing is good for everybody, not just people who want to have businesses, but just for everybody to have a better problem solving, more fulfilled life.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. Well, and um, the people who are working, who are dependent on the benefits, and you mentioned debt. That's another thing I think the entrepreneurial mindset class um, hits pretty squarely in the face, right in the beginning of the book. Who owns the ice house? They talk about financial management. They talk about personal finance and just being responsible. And that's not an easy discussion because people like their creature comforts, and they just we all probably have a tendency to think like, well, what's so wrong with the way I live my life? These are my choices, and it's like, yeah, they are your choices, but the one fundamental life lesson that is so important to learn as a child, but some people never did, is that there are consequences for your actions and your choices. um what a sad life to live if you go through your whole life believing I'm just a victim of my circumstance and I don't really have any power to change my circumstances in my life. This this class is a really effective tool to recover people from that syndrome. Almost it's almost a syndrome where people just feel powerless and unable to better their lives. And this class is great at reversing that, even for people who don't really fall into that category of lost people. It helps people get a clearer, more focused, more grounded outlook on life, I think. That makes it easier to be successful if you can focus on something and have a vision for what you want your life to look like.